Hi, everyone. Welcome to All About the Joy. I'm Carmen Lisa, your host. And in the house, Dana Miranda is back. And I'm so glad to have you here. I was just telling you, I had to go to work this morning and I just got back and I just feel so out of sorts. So I'm just going to apologize to you up front. I think, I don't know how to explain it. This conversation that we're going to have is always a hard conversation because people don't like to talk about money. But I wanted to bring you back on the show, and I'm so glad you agreed. Thank you so much because we've known each other for a while now. Mm-hmm. You are also the author of this great book, You Don't Need a Budget. I have read it. I keep referring to it. I've given it as a gift to one person. I want to give it to other people too. I actually think what I love about the book more is that it emotionally is teaching me something. So I don't want to keep rambling. I just want to tell you the state of mind.
Thank you so much.
So thank you for being here. Yeah. How are you? How is your new year starting?
It's good. It's good. I'm doing well. I feel like as wild as things still are in our world, I do feel like we're turning a corner a little bit to where we might at least be headed in a better direction. I think we went into 2025 afraid of what was going to happen, and I'm going into 2026 hopeful for change, optimistic, truly optimistic for change and feeling a little better.
Look at me, I'm trying to stop talking, Carmen. Look at when you emailed me and you said that, I was like, okay, she has to be on the show. I mean, I wanted you on the show anyway. You're such a supporter of me. And I just want to say thank you. I've said that before, but you are a supporter of me as a writer and you support the show. And so I appreciate that so much. But I think you're crazy about this statement that you made. And I'm dying to know what you mean by it.
Yeah.
So can you expand on that a bit?
Sure. And there's probably just an amount of privilege in my position too. So maybe I'm a Midwest white lady sitting back and being like, things are looking better. The reason that I'm feeling optimistic is that, I'm like talking politically, of course, with the Trump regime coming in 2025, that we were all afraid of what he was going to do because he made a lot of horrific promises and immediately started taking steps to follow through on them. Mm-hmm. But we have watched over and over and over through 2025 how the administration bungles everything that they tried to do. DOGE is dissipated at this point. It's having no effect, right? Mm-hmm. And also they are losing in the courts, which makes me very hopeful. So everything that they have tried to do is meeting a lot of resistance, and also they're just failing to do it. Like they're reminding us that they're incompetent, which we always forget about when we have a break from Trump, how incompetent the administration is. Yeah. So that's where the hope is for me. So financially, thinking in the money world, in my world too, 2025 was really scary because we didn't know what was going to happen with the economy. And I think we're still there. I think that's still really uncertain. And it's just been doing this weird thing for so long where it's like the economy keeps threatening to tank and destroy all of our lives. And it doesn't quite do that. But we are in kind of a weird, like the job market is scary. I was laid off last fall and I'm still looking for a job. So I'm like in
Which
that
is why
moment.
I'm confused you are supporting our show so much. I mean, Dana financially supports me on Substack, which I was shook by. You don't have to do that.
Well, nobody has to, but I appreciate your work.
Thank you. Thank you. I just want to back up before you go further because I feel like you said some things that I don't disagree with. First of all, I know that you are one of these people who always talks about your privilege, and I appreciate that, right? As a woman of color. But I also think at some point, it's just so blurred. This isn't even about your privilege anymore. We're all in this together now. Like, this is not even about a race thing or an economic thing. This is the Trump administration has just it has just shown us where all of our flaws are in our Constitution. And I still have faith, but it's dwindling in the American people. And I think what you're saying is you still have faith that we can get through this now that we know what we know. but I feel like I knew all along. Like I wasn't confused, Dana. I wasn't. And then here's what I'll say. When it comes to like student loans, right? When it comes to things that affect me personally, groceries and whatever, I'm like, I think it can get worse. Am I being pessimistic?
Probably not. I think you're right. It can get worse for sure. And we also have to remember that there are most likely 3 more years of this administration before he's out, right? Like at my best moments of optimism, I feel like we'll usher in a Democratic majority in 2026, and they will actually be able to kick Trump out of office in 27. But that's incredibly optimistic, and we've seen our legislators have the opportunity to do that in the past and didn't. So I'm not counting on that.
Well, no. So just so that the audience understands what we're talking about is the House and the Senate it looks like we're going to get the House back in Democratic hands. Right now, we are the minority. And then the Senate is breaking up that's really hopeful that we could also take over the Senate. I want to stress something that I think is important for people to understand. Congress has the ability to stop all of this right now. Yes. And they are choosing not to. So every time we're upset with what Trump is doing, please know that the enablers, the Congress has more power than the president does, and they're not using it at all. So I just wanted to explain that to our audience about what you're talking about. We have the ability to elect people into office in 2026, and hopefully it'll be a Democratic Congress, and that's what you're hoping.
Yeah, and I think that's the drum that needs to be beat this year, is to remove Republicans and work toward that Democratic majority, because that's the first step that needs to happen to get this administration under control. I'm not 100% in support of what Democrats are doing at any given moment either.
Well, all of us. Sane people are not
at least fight the Trump administration because it's politically expedient for them, if nothing else. Even not necessarily because it's the right thing to do.
Yeah, I think part of the problem is it's the cult-like mentality that we're having a problem with. So, but okay, how does this relate to people financially in their everyday life? Like, why are you saying what you're saying, and why does the political aspect of this matter so much to you?
So it's important day to day because everything that is involved in our personal relationship with money is the effect of some policy decision down the line. And we don't talk about that enough in personal finance. And that's something I think is really important, even if we're not talking about politics in like the horse race thing, or like we need a Democratic majority kind of thing, or who's in whatever office. It's really important to make that connection to the larger structure, the larger systems, and to understand specifically that policy decisions are impacting our personal financial situations, that we aren't in the situations that we're in of, like, for example, having overwhelming student loan debt and having trouble repaying that because of our individual personal decisions. We're in that situation because of how policy and culture shaped our relationship with student loans and education.
Can we even drill it down even a little bit? Because a lot of people don't have student loans, right? A lot of people don't. Can we talk, like tariffs? How do tariffs affect, right? Because everyone knows that Trump loves tariffs. How do tariffs affect like a regular person like me on an everyday basis?
Well, I'll speak to that. So without having the expertise of like really knowing the details of those policies, and especially not like international trade is for sure out of my wheelhouse. But I think one piece that's really important is just how constantly absorbing this news and this information impacts our relationship with money, right? Like everybody's afraid going to the grocery store right now. And that was the case before Trump took office, because we immediately started talking about the fact that tariffs were coming, right? That was the case before the majority of the tariffs were put in place, I think in April, was people were already afraid going to the grocery store, were already feeling strapped, right? Whether those prices had already changed or not, or whether the tariffs had an impact.
Or just even understanding what that meant, because it felt like this new word, this new thing that he was pushing. And then you were having people explain that tariffs were actually a tax on the consumer. So it became
by way of the corporations, right? So tariffs are a tax on the corporation for importing whatever they're importing and the parts of things that they're making and selling. And they pass that cost on to consumers. And I think what we've seen since the pandemic in particular is because there's so much awareness of those tariffs happening, corporations are really brazen with passing those costs on to consumers. Like, companies always have costs, and they have to decide how much of that cost they're willing to eat and how much they're willing to raise prices to sell us stuff, right? And when it's out in the ether and everybody's talking about tariffs and how they're going to raise prices, corporations are like, yeah, okay, great. Everybody's ready for us to raise prices. So they're doing that. They were doing it before their costs actually went up. The same thing happened with talk around inflation. After the pandemic hit in 2020, companies were making more money, but their costs were going down. They didn't reduce the prices for us. Everything is inflated and costs more than it did before 2020.
Right, because corporations are always going to take care of themselves and their shareholders first. Right. So they're always going to do what's in the best interest of them. And that's not anyone, like, I'm not a big hater of capitalism, but it's kind of like this idea that corporations are not always preserving themselves first is something that I don't understand why the regular consumer doesn't understand. You know what I mean? They're always going to take care of their shareholders first. We're not the most important thing. Like, my ability to pay for eggs is not their concern.
Not at all, right? Yeah, or to feed your children or to pay your rent or anything. Absolutely. And especially as we put more and more distance between us as people, as a consumer, and the people who are making those decisions and the shareholders. But I think because most of us don't think like a business and we don't have that business mindset. I think people who are running business, people who are entrepreneurial kind of have that understanding because it seems very clear. You just look at what the incentive is. The incentive is to make money for the shareholders. That's also a policy decision, right? The rules that are in place for public corporations require them to think and to work in the best interest of shareholders, not often in the best interest of consumers, right? Their entire responsibility is to make sure that they're not losing money for people who are investing in their companies. And that's something that at a policy level, no.
There's no morality to it, right?
Or, what I've seen, and I'd be curious, because we are of different generations, Carmen.
We are. I'm older. Much older.
But I have seen, I'm 40 this year, and I've seen in my adult life we have talked about it culturally, inshittification of things, and that we talk about that digitally and like social media. But overall, products are being inshittified, like the degradation of quality of things, because companies have just given up on being concerned with giving us a good product. All of the effort and all of the resources they have go into selling us a product. And it's kind of embarrassing when you think from a business standpoint how terrible products and services have gotten.
Right. So like a great example is even just, I don't know, like a microwave or a TV. There was a time I remember when, and this is so long ago, but I'm in my 50s. So that's the generational difference. There was more metal to everything. Everything was heavier and it lasted. You could buy a TV and it would last you 15 years. Like, I don't remember growing up us having to buy a new TV. But they make them cheaper and they say it's for, the environment, or it's better, and it's all plasticky and it breaks and it doesn't. And I'm kind of just coming up with an example, but it's kind of that thing where things are not made as well as they used to be. They're marketed in a way to be better for us or better for the environment or better whatever. And there may be some truth to that. I'm not trying to diss that, but it's cheaply made and then we have to keep buying it over and over and over again.
Mhm.
You know, the whole phone thing, the whole iPhone thing is a great example of like, especially back in the day when phones became a thing, it was like every year people were buying $1,000 phone. There's no need
Mhm.
to.
Right. Well, the technology upgrades were actually happening at the time too. Like every new,
Right.
what is
Iteration
it called? Version of the phone. Yeah. Generation. That's what they call it. Every new generation of the phone was better. And it's not really like that anymore. And they're still trying to sell it that way. So yeah. But yeah, they're just having to find other ways for those
It's
things
all
to
about money.
become irrelevant. Yeah.
Right. Imagine a world where they were so, like if we were all concerned more about us as individuals. I can't even imagine that. And can I ask you this question, what your thoughts on this? I'm surprised by how many people think that our finances and how we're doing as a country is based on Wall Street. Like you see that, right?
Yeah.
Oh, the economy is doing great. It's not doing great for you, little person who's not invested.
Mm-hmm. That is a problem in my opinion with media, in news media in general, personal finance media, because we report what's going on in the stock market as if it's relevant to everybody. When the vast majority of money in the stock market is held by a tiny minority of Americans. And so most of us are not being impacted day to day by the movement in the Dow and the NASDAQ, and right? But for some reason, we all absorb that information in our lives. People will sit and watch.
Well, there's a ticker
CNBC
at the bottom of every news thing.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's going back to the iPhone. I was so happy when you could finally delete the stocks app that just automatically comes with the iPhone.
So
early
I'm
on,
Android. I've never been an iPhone, and I know there are some huge differences between both of those. But so you recently were able to take the ticker off.
Maybe in the last 10 years or something. It feels recent now, but so. Yeah, it's just this thing like stock tickers should not be part of most of our lives. Like if you're investing, the average person, it's in a retirement account. Many of us are not even doing that.
Because we can't afford to.
But watching market performance day to day it shouldn't impact your decisions for retirement savings. So it's completely just not information that you need to have. But day to day, no one should have to be watching the movement of the stock market. It's not relevant to your life. But I suspect that psychologically, the reason that people are attracted to that is there is kind of a feeling of having some kind of control. It feels like information you should have because it's information you're being given by like major news outlets. It's the same way I think that we absorb political news that often is not relevant to us day to day and not something we can take action on. But it gives you kind of a feeling of being in control. And so I think seeing that stock market
but it's a lie.
Absolutely. And that's why I encourage people not to watch it. I think it also makes people make the wrong types of decisions. You're trying to take control in the wrong places. Like if you don't have money to invest, tweaking things in your retirement account is like not going to give you control of your financial life, right? There's other things to focus on in your relationship with money.
Yeah. And let's get into the nitty gritty of that. What do you see that people should be concerned about, tying it back to how hopeful you are? I hope you're right.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I want you to be right. What do you think people should be looking at in 2026 or maybe doing a little bit differently?
So what's happening this year, what I see, and this is really a vibes thing, but I think we're kind of running on vibes right now. But what I'm feeling is sort of feeling like what it felt like in 2009, 10 to kind of be in the recession, the sort of job loss that I'm seeing across sectors, but in media in particular, which is my industry. And so layoffs are just happening. People are afraid of the impact of AI coming in, that kind of thing. And so even though we are not economically moving into a recession, a lot of the experience that people are having, the precarity that people are experiencing looks a lot like that. I don't think the numbers are where they were in 2010. But I don't watch that
I
as
don't know
closely.
what precarity means. I can't even say it. I don't know what precarity means.
Precarity. So yeah, so it's like there's an instability. We're unstable, uncertain. It just feels like even if you can get a job, you're like, who knows when they're going to take it away from me? That's what it feels like right now. And that, it's being reported in the news. There's numbers. It's an interesting phenomenon to look at or whatever. But on a personal level, individually, that really impacts your relationship with money. Even if you're out of a job for 3 months, you're able to get back in, which is, being laid off is kind of more shuffling around, I think, for a lot of people than joblessness. But that instability is changing your health insurance. It's you're eating through savings every couple of months. You're using debt. So that's and that's what my household is experiencing right now, is that, like, I know I'm going to be fine. I know I'm going to get a job. I'll pay off the debt eventually. I'll maybe rebuild the savings, right? But right now, it's this uncertainty, and it's also a pause in any progress you might be making. So at a personal level, even if we don't have this like mass joblessness or unemployment, and that kind of thing, I think we're stalled because we're all afraid of, what's going to happen next. We're afraid to spend money, even if you're in a good position. People are afraid to make big moves because we don't know what's going to happen next, right? So I think there's a feeling of just being stalled financially and making any progress because we don't know when the rug is going to be pulled out from under us at any point.
So do you think people should just stop making so many choices, be okay in the space that we're at the moment? Is that kind of
That's a good question.
Saying?
Yeah, and I remember you asked for advice and I didn't offer any. So but to deal with that, like if that's what the next year or so is going to look like because of the uncertainty that we face under this regime, what does that mean? The biggest thing I would say, because this is always my message, is to understand that that's what's going on, and to deal with the emotional side of it by not blaming yourself, and to also understand, like, maybe you will use through some of your savings. Maybe you'll pull money from a retirement account. Maybe you'll accumulate more credit card debt than you normally did. Maybe you won't build savings as fast as you have in the past. The circumstances are different, and it's okay. Like, we're in a season where those things are probably going to change.
Well, I think that kind of is the crux, and you could yell at me if you want, but the crux of your book, You Don't Need a Budget, is this emotional connection we have with money. And I think I'm going to tie it into something else. I spoke to another friend of mine the other day who was having a tough time with everything that's happening. And they live in a red state. They were blue dot in a red state, one of those things. And it's just overwhelming. And there was this feeling of some sort of shame in feeling the way you're feeling. And I was like, I feel the same way. I've cried on my couch too. And I think that's kind of what you're saying is like, what's happening right now, especially when it comes to our money, we're going to have to make some changes, and don't beat yourself up about
Absolutely.
it. Don't be so mean to yourself about it. All of it is not under your control. You got to make some choices, and those choices maybe 10 years ago would have been a different circumstance, and you might have made a different, but we're here right now. I mean, is that kind
Absolutely. And you're right. That is largely the crux of the book too, and that's why it's important to understand that systemic impact and the systemic connection to personal finance. Like, we kind of keep macroeconomics and microeconomics as separate fields, but they're so intertwined. Like, what's happening at a macro level, what's happening in the stock market does impact us down the line, right? But just not in the way that people
think.
On a daily basis. Yeah. It impacts what corporations are doing, which impacts, how they're paying us, how they're treating us, kind of thing. And that impacts us day to day. Like, it's this more of a downstream sort of effect. But so there's a lot, like, I would largely encourage people to give themselves grace this year, because our relationships with money are just really weird right now. Like, we are sitting in constant fear of the rug being pulled out from under us. And that's a really tough situation to be in. We can understand that we're in a difficult and uncertain time, but it can be really hard to make individual financial choices when, from the personal finance space, the advice that you're getting is just to continue to buckle down. I even see, and this is what really bothers me, I saw this during the pandemic too, during the recession, that like news media, personal finance media will acknowledge, oh, the inflation is high, the price of groceries are high, housing has gone up or whatever. Here are 5 ways to deal with it. And it's all, budget and spend less money and restrict more and all of these things that like none of that is the issue, right? The one thing that we should be doing is changing policy. So the only thing individuals can do is vote for different people. But it's none of it is.
Say that again. Please say that again because I think it's important.
Yes.
Please say that again.
Mm-hmm. I will. And I had somebody respond because I said this in a chapter in the book and someone responded and felt much more negative about it. But I think on an individual level, the one thing that we can absolutely do to make a change is to vote and vote for the right people. I think most of the people listening to this conversation, right? Vote for the people who are going to make the changes that are helping working class people and not corporations and businesses, companies.
Right.
So, but that's at an individual level. When we're being told like what you need to do is pay off your debt and budget harder and be more disciplined with your money, right? Those aren't actually realistic things we can do often to change our financial situation. But one realistic individual, in a lot of cases, very simple step that you can take is to vote. And you don't have to.
I'm going to say
you don't have to run an organization or run for office.
You can't. You're way too kind. I'm gonna reinterpret this just a little bit.
All right.
When you are being told over and over again in all different types of media that the problem that you're having with not being able to pay your bills is your fault because you didn't budget well, because you didn't save, because you bought you say this, your latte or whatever, you spent $6 on a coffee or whatever, and that the problem is that you have not done the right things. That's bullshit. All of that is bullshit, because you know what makes it easier to have a budget and to change your budget? You know what? Money. When you have money, you can budget your ass off. Like you can really make some major changes. And I know that as a person who went from having absolutely nothing to then having tons of money to then not having it again. But when you have money, you're able to make some different choices and really change up things, And so I love when you say this, because I feel like I don't know who reached out to you and had a negative. I'm curious what was it that they were trying to say?
So there's a lot of cynicism about the impact our vote can have, because people think no matter who you vote for, people get into office and they don't make a difference. And in a lot of cases, they're not doing the right things once they're in office. That is true. But that is on them. Like that's a systemic problem. That's an institutional problem with the parties and the way that elections are funded and all these things. So that's all, again, not an individual blame. But if we take that simple step of going out and voting, that changes how the institution operates, because they think they can get away with it because we're not paying attention. They think they can get away with it because we don't vote anyway. So they don't have to listen to
It's like
what we're asking for.
Chicken egg thing. It's like around like I also am trying to tell people you need to pay attention to your local people, your state, whatever's happening in your county and your state, be involved. And I don't know why people are so resistant, but I also think that's the way it's been designed. Right? If we're just apathetic, then we don't do anything, then people can go do what they want. But I agree with you. I think you should vote. I'm not saying don't have any responsibility for your finances. I'm just saying stop being so cruel to yourself about every single thing that happens. And it took me a long time. It did. It took me a long time to understand that who I am as a human being has nothing to do with my bank account. And the way that I learned it was because I had met so many wealthy people and I worked for them, and they were the nastiest, ugliest human beings I'd ever met. Not all rich people, but
Yeah.
some of the ones I work for. And I realized like money don't make you classy. Money don't make you beautiful. Money does not make you a good person. Money gives you choices.
Yep. Yeah. And being a good person doesn't mean you'll make money. And being a bad person doesn't mean that you won't be able to.
Well, you and I would
money,
be billionaires
clearly,
right now. And here's the thing, because if it was just about being good people, and then because we don't believe in billionaires, I'm just speaking on behalf of you, we wouldn't actually be billionaires.
100%. Yeah. I know. I see that all the time when I see how things are being run. I have that joke with my partner all the time. You know, he'll be like, if I were president, and I say, you could never be, you could never get into that position. Or, you know, if I'm running whatever corporation, I'm like, you could never, because you could never make the kind of choices it takes to get into that position and have that kind of money.
It's so weird. Okay, let's see if we can talk about some fun things. I don't think it's going to be fun, but we're going to try to do some rapid fire questions. Okay, I don't know. Let me just see here. Rapid fire. Okay.
All right.
What's a money myth you'd love to retire forever? And you can take your time.
Oh, there's so many to choose from. My goodness.
Okay.
A money myth. To go back to investing, I think one of many money myths that I'd like to retire is that idea that if you just start saving now, everything's going to be fine. I see that in personal finance a lot, where they say, no matter how much you can set aside, just start doing it, because if you're going to build the habit or whatever the idea that we think, but you're not going to retire on saving $1 a week with an investment app, you know?
Really? With an investment app?
Yeah. I know there's a lot of benefit to building different savings habits and all of these things, but if it's a choice between having the comfort and luxury in your life today that you deserve to have, and trying to force yourself into some savings habit that isn't actually going to benefit you all that much in the future, you know, then it's not good advice.
Right. And this is what some people have said about your book that I think they're missing the point. You're not telling people to just throw it all to the wind and walk away and just do what you want today. That is not what you're saying in your book. So every time I read some of those, I think your book is great. And again, I want to say it again, you do not need a budget.
Thank you.
I think it's great also because it's making people have the conversations that they don't normally have, especially people who maybe weren't feeling like they could have the conversation, you know?
Yes. Yeah, that's absolutely my favorite thing, when someone says they read the book and then they encourage their partner, husband, wife to read the book, or that they had, you know, that people are having these like kitchen table conversations inspired by the book, which is incredible.
And some people your book is well reviewed, and that's not my point, but because I do read some of the other stuff, I'm like, you're missing the point, you know? I actually think it's healthier to deal with the emotional aspects of who you are in relation to money, as opposed to keep blaming yourself. And I really do think that's the crux of your book, is to start getting us to detach ourselves to this, like, I'm a good person if I'm making $200,000 a year. And then somehow I'm a horrible bad person if I lose my job or I only have $30,000 a year now, you know?
Yeah.
Okay. What's a financial rule you personally ignore? Personally, because I know the ones you talk about.
Sure. I don't save for retirement right now. But in my last full-time job, I wasn't contributing to a 401k. I may in the future, so it's not I'm a never say never person for sure. But I don't prioritize saving in a retirement account because I have other things to do with the money, and I have a limited amount of money that comes into my life.
Right. And you feel okay about that?
I do. Yeah. I'm nervous, and it's not something I advise necessarily, because everyone has to decide what level of risk they're willing to take. And the level of risk that I'm accepting is that at some point I won't be able to work to earn money. There's, because of the industry that I am in, that I'm a writer for a living, I have a better chance of being able to continue to work into old age than if I worked in construction like my dad does, right? Like your body's just going to break down eventually. But at any point, that could be taken away from me too. So I do understand that I have that risk.
If it makes you feel any better, I have the same risk too. And my whole game plan is I have 6 godchildren and they better take care of my ass. That's all I'm saying. That's my game plan.
My sister has 4 children. And I think that's more than she and her husband will need in old age. So I'm hoping I can borrow a little bit of that.
That's so wrong, and yet back of my head.
I'm also hoping for policy change that is better, so our country is better at taking care of people by the time.
I think that, and that's a great point, right? Is if we had the ability to understand that our vote matters, and if we started changing the way in which we think about older people, people wouldn't fear getting older because they don't know where they're going to end up.
Right.
Because they don't have enough money.
It's a sad state.
Let me see. What's the first thing you do when you feel financially stressed? Or are you beyond that now?
What's that?
Or are you beyond that now?
Oh, no, not at all. Absolutely. I hear that from a lot of like financial writers and therapists and planners and things like that. But no, we all experience financial stress. And I work as a writer. I got laid off last fall. So I absolutely do. Often my response, like thinking about dealing with my layoff and thinking about that, is I tend to spend money more when I have financial stress than when I don't. And so that's something I should dig into, like psychologically, and see where that comes from. But I do remember years ago, I was working as a copywriter for Marie Forleo, and so a lot of what I was writing, not a lot of it, some of what I was writing was about the idea of like manifesting and that kind of thing, law of attraction, that kind of thing, which is not something that I like, that I subscribe to whole cloth or anything like that. But I do remember there being this idea of giving money away, sending money out or whatever, right? Be generous is sort of a way to convince yourself of abundance, kind of like knowing that the money will come back to you. So I think that I take that. I think I take that approach a little bit. And also I'm stressed, and buying things is like a short-term salve. So there's also just that of just stress.
I don't think I think that's kind of normal. I tend to so this is my thing. Like when I don't have any money, I tend to give more money to like people I see. Like, I don't know if I necessarily buy things. But like you said, invest in things. Like all of a sudden I'm giving a $10 to a homeless person when I know, but to me, I'm like, $10 isn't going to fix the problem. $10 isn't going to make me find how I'm going to pay my rent. You know what I mean? Like,
I think that's what it is. Yeah. So I think like, well, I'll go out to eat, and this $50 is like, wasn't going to make the difference. I need a job. So who cares? So yeah, I think that's, and it wasn't like that in the past, but I went like you explained, like I had very little money. I made more money. I made less money. And so I've gone up and down. And so having been in a situation of making enough money to be really comfortable and understanding those dynamics, I think has been helpful with that, of knowing like, actually this little bit of money is not going to make the difference for me. I'm going to have dinner tonight so that I'm happy, so that I have the energy tomorrow to look for a job.
But here's the trick though, because I don't think it took me a long time to do this. You got to be able to do it without the guilt. You can't feel guilty about it, because then you're totally defeating the purpose of enjoying that moment of sharing. Like I always tell my friends, if you need anything, just call me. Like whether I have the money or not, I will find somebody who does. You know what I mean? Because I just believe in that. Like there are people who can help other people. And if we're in an emergency situation, I don't want somebody to be like, I can't ask for help. Like that's why my mom died. I always say that. My mom died because she didn't ask for help. She was way too young and just had a normal thing. She had asthma. And it's like, but she didn't want to, because there was all the stigma with welfare or whatever and blah, blah, blah. And so that's how I see it as a little kid, right? Still. And that's why I'm the way I am. I'm like, if one of my friends needs something, just call me, whether I have the money or not. I will call on some people who owe me a favor and we will figure it out. But it is that kind of thing. You can't have guilt because you decided to go out to dinner and enjoy whatever with your family or by yourself or whatever it is, or you got a massage, like, because then that defeats the purpose.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Let go of that shame. Think about the bigger things, the bigger rocks, right? And exert your influence over those as much as you can, but don't sweat the small stuff.
Yeah.
That's very trite, but I think that's true with money. Don't sweat the small stuff. I think it's
true too. I will say this. There is someone who is a big time CNBC, Wall Street person who I know. I'm not going to say his name. He's not anyone I ever worked with, but I met him when it was back in Twitter days, and we had lunch together, and he was going to invest in my book and all this bullshit, whatever. It was all bullshit. But anyways, he did say something to me that stuck with me forever, because I was saying to him, God, you have so much money. Like, what is that like? Like, did you always have money and whatever? And I was all like, teach me how to be an entrepreneur.
Yeah. I love that.
He said something to me that stuck forever. And he said, Carmen, you know what? You will always be able to make money, but I will never be able to have the kinds of friends and connections that you have. Never. And I thought about that. Like, I thought about the importance and the way he said that our connections and who we are to each other is so much more important. And he spent so much time making money that he, divorced, doesn't talk to his children, whatever. And I'm not trying to say it's either or. I'm just saying I will never forget that. And I think that's part of it too, is I am going to go have that dinner, even though I lost my job. And I'm not going to feel bad about it because I know I can always make money somehow. Money is not the defining issue of who Carmen is.
Right. Yeah. And that's a belief that you have to cultivate, because it's very scary. And I've had those moments too over the last few months as I've been looking for a job, of feeling like may never be able to make money again, right? But the industry has changed too much. The world has changed too much. I'm not as attractive on the market as I thought I would be. Like, I've had all of those thoughts. Right. And, and you have to regularly bring yourself back around to it. And I think that is where it's helpful for me to spend
you need
money.
To stop doing that. You need to stop talking to yourself that way. You know that, right? I mean, not to make this a therapy session now, but here's what I'm going to jump.
Well, thank you for no, it's good to hear that point blank. Like, of course I know that's true.
Yeah. But we all do it. Even a successful writer who has a great book. What's your website? I forgot.
If you want to learn more about the book, it's youdontneedabudget.com. And then my newsletter is at healthyrich.co.
On Substack.
Yep.
Oh, no, that's the website. But
that URL goes to the Substack. So it's Healthy Rich on Substack.
Yeah. Can you say it again, though, for the audio? Because I spoke over you.
Yes, it's healthyrich.co. Or if you're on Substack, just search for Healthy Rich.
Okay. And then the website for You Don't Need a Budget is youdontneedabudget.com.
That's right.
Okay, cool. Let me see. Okay. What's a small financial win people should celebrate more often?
Ooh, a win. I would say any moment where you didn't feel stressed about money and you thought you should have. That's a little weird, but what's coming to me is this experience when I had been really struggling as a freelancer for years, and I got my first staff writer job, and I was making a salary for the first time in years. And the company sent me to a conference, and, paid for the hotel and the flight and everything like that. But the hotel they booked it on the company credit card, and then the hotel asked for my card when I checked in for incidentals or whatever. And the hotel mistakenly charged my debit card for the room for 5 nights or whatever. And I got back and talked to it was a small company, so talked to the CEO about it right away. And he's like, we'll take care of that. We can reimburse you on your next paycheck. But then he was like, can you wait till your next paycheck, or do you need us to send you the money right away? And I said, no, I can wait till my next paycheck. And that was an incredible feeling to know, this is my money. I'm going to want it back, but I'm not desperate right now. And that was the first time in years that I was like, no, I need, didn't feel like I absolutely need the $600 back right now. It didn't take my bank account negative. I was going to make it through the week and a half till payday. So yeah, anytime. And there are smaller instances of that too, right? Like you go to the ATM and you can take out $20 or $500. When I was in college, there was an ATM on campus. You could take out $5 at a time. And I usually had to go to that one. So if I could go to the one and take out 20 and cover the fee without overdrafting, that was a good victory too. I think that where if you have experienced financial precarity, that those little things are really important and to celebrate that, because I think sometimes you experience that and you think that's the norm, and then you punish yourself, shame yourself for any time that's not the case. But I think acknowledge that you have challenges and that those moments are really special.
Yeah, I think for me, one of the things I remember calling one of my best friends because I wanted to buy some sandals, but they were $90. And they were sandals. They were just velvety or something. This was years ago when I was working at my big time company job, whatever. And I was like, this just feels wrong. And she's like, if you love them, just like, she was almost annoyed, just buy them. And I was like, okay. I remember that being like, wow, I really got all, I would never do that now. I've grown. I understand now if I want to spend $90 on stupid shoes or whatever, and I have it, I'm going to buy them. You know what I mean? But I just remember that being like a win. I can actually call someone and tell them I'm going to buy sandals that are like $90.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I had those moments too. And you have to cherish that. You have to understand. Yeah. It also continues to remind you of the privilege that you've gained too. So you never forget what it was like to live on $12,000 a year or whatever. So you can always
I think survive that if you have to.
They do. Yeah, absolutely. Mm-hmm.
I don't think you or I would ever forget, though.
I haven't. I don't think, and I continue to keep, my lifestyle has not gotten a lot more lavish as I've made more money. It's usually traveling more. So I don't have these ongoing additional costs. It's very easy to downsize my life when I make less money, or if I, get laid off or something like that happens.
I want us to end on something joyful. You know what?
Okay. Yeah.
I'll just put it that way. What do you see in the future in 2026 that might be hopeful, joyful, something to look forward to?
Yeah. Well, since we started with politics, I think that the election this year is something to look forward to, because it's an opportunity for us to all get out and give a very clear rebuke to the Trump administration and to the Republicans who've been enabling him. I think that's going to be really important. And I'm looking forward to that victory. And on top of that, we had Mamdani in New York City. I think there's going to be a lot more socialist and leftist victories around the country too on the tail of that. So that can be very exciting for folks, for people who are looking for working class policy. So that's exciting. Financially, I think people probably have challenges ahead. Like I said, that it's going to be kind of rough water. So what we can look for are the moments of joy where we allow ourselves to enjoy our lives in spite of the ways that our politicians and corporations are trying to sort of keep us down and keep us small, that we can be big and joyful in spite of that.
I think that's fair enough. I just want to say one last thing now. I think, saying socialist, leftist, or whatever is bad, because we should all be for working class. I think that's where the whole mess is. People have taken words and have put something upon them that isn't true,
Yes. Yeah. Those are dirty words for some people, but it is true. Working class politicians and politicians who work for working class people, regardless of their party leanings.
Want to take anyways, but maybe that's a whole other conversation. I don't know, but I get annoyed by that, because if you say socialist, people get all upset, and it's like, you don't even know what the word means. Not you. I mean, people.
Right. Absolutely. That is true. And that's by design too. So
absolutely.
But
All right.
Politicians who work for the people. That's what we're looking
work for the people. And we make sure we vote. I feel like what we got out of this is you need to vote. Somehow this became very political.
Spend money when you want and get out and vote.
And also buy this book. You don't need a budget, by Dana Miranda. Is your last name Latino?
It's not. I can give you the history if you want. If you
Wait, look, I'm kind of sad. I'm like, it's not. I thought we were.
I know. I'm disappointed too. So it was my middle name, and then I got married and I got divorced, and I was keeping my divorce name for a while. Didn't want to go back to my maiden name, and so I took Miranda as my middle name. But it was originally my great grandmother's middle name, and it was German. So it's got German roots. But yeah, I visit Puerto Rico and people get very disappointed when they look at my name and then look at my Midwest white face. Hear my accent.
I don't know anything about my father at all, right? It's one of the things I'll never know. But the interesting part about it is the rumors when I was growing up was that his last name was Miranda.
Oh.
Isn't that funny? So it's kind of interesting. I mean, it's just a weird, it could be myth for all I know. I have no idea. I don't want people coming out to me telling me they're my father. So thanks. But,
spiritually, I claim that anyone whose name is Miranda is my cousin. So I feel a connection to Lin-Manuel Miranda now and now you.
Okay, cool.
It was mythical anyway, so let's take it.
Well, I'm so glad you were here. I know you'll come back. I'm not even going to ask you to come back. And I know that Rick and Cynthia would love to see you. So maybe you can
I'd love to see them again.
Friday Night Live at some point. But thank you so much for being here, Dana. I appreciate you. I appreciate you a lot. So thank you so much for all that you've done for me and writing wise when we first met and just giving me confidence, really changed my trajectory on who I am as a creative person too. So thank you so much for that. And stop sending me money right now. I love you, but stop it. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for hanging out with us. And remember, at the end of the day, it really is all about the joy. Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks for stopping by All About the Joy. Be better and stay beautiful, folks. Have a sweet day.